All right, thank you so much. These are wonderful presentations. So yeah, my name is Sean Champagne. I am a city planner. I work for the City of Medicine Hat. I work in the Planning and Development Services Department of our city, and I work a lot on long-range planning for the City of Medicine Hat. So I am leading this Strong Towns initiative, the Strong Towns Community Action Lab that the City of Medicine Hat is in partnership with Strong Towns. So I'd like to get a little bit of a lay of the land. So just by a show of hands, who has seen, maybe attended the first public presentation that took place at the Esplanade? Okay. Has anyone looked at our Shape Your City webpage? We have a Shape Your City page on this topic. Okay, good. Anyone seen the FAQ video online or read the FAQ? Okay, good. Anyone come to the trade show? See me at the trade show? I know one person here, he was giving me a hard time. Yeah, okay, good. Well, I don't want to spend too much time today. I'll give a quick introduction about who Strong Towns is, what the Community Action Lab is. I don't want to dive too much into that detail because a lot of those things are available online. I'll share some of those resources. But Strong Towns, they are a nonprofit registered organization, and they are advocates for urban planning practices. So they have an educational platform, a website where you can sign up, read articles, watch videos. They have podcasts as well, all on the topics of what makes our city a great place, urban planning, things like that. So what they did is last year, they created what's called the Community Action Lab. So they had a lot of municipalities reaching out to them over the years and saying, we really like your content. We'd like maybe some help implementing these things. Can you help us out? They just don't have the resources to do that because they're a nonprofit. So they said, okay, we have to formalize this a little bit. So we're going to create this Community Action Lab. They created that. The City of Medicine Hat staff was directed by our City Council to apply for this program, and we were successfully chosen. And so here we are today. So I think the segue was pretty good. Chantal and Jennifer's presentation was excellent because one of the first things we did, I'm going to hand these out, is we created this 5 steps to becoming a strong community citizen. And we just outline certain things that everyday residents can do as part of these grassroots movements. And we have a lot of these good resources on the back here. And actually, I'll hand these out. If you don't, you can take one of these and pass it on. I have a lot of links here to some resources that are available, both on Strong Towns. So some articles on initiatives taken by other citizens elsewhere in the world. We have information available on our micro grants, information on forming a community association. I also have a link to our Strong Towns Academy. That's actually not ours. That was created by Strong Towns. So if you're really interested in this topic and you want to really deep dive into some of the same topics that we ourselves are studying as employees of the City of Medicine Hat, you can enroll at Strong Towns Academy. And normally these courses you have to pay for, but they are given free to anyone who wants to sign up because we're participating in this program. And our Shape Your City page is a great resource as well. So on there, we have the FAQ, and we also have a page called Our Strong Towns Journey, where we're kind of outlining all of the things that we're participating in throughout this 2-year program. So everyone take a copy of this and check out those great resources. So on that, I'll jump into it. What I do want to talk about today is the Strong Towns approach. So these are the things, what does Strong Towns stand for? Before I begin, what's very fundamental to understand is Strong Towns isn't coming here to tell us what to do. This is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. It's more of a mind shift, a different way of approaching things. So as I'm going through the examples today, what I want you to do is think about how you can maybe implement some of these things in your own lives. So either professionally or as you, through an association like this, because it's about much more than just city planning. And you'll notice as well, there's a lot of overlap amongst the topics, and that's just by its very nature, because a lot of these things are quite complex. So the first element of the Strong Towns approach is the following. So it's that a Strong Towns approach relies on small, incremental investments instead of large, transformative projects. So historically, the City of Medicine Hat has been very wealthy. So we were able to invest a lot of money in these large capital-intensive projects because we had a lot of wealth that was generated from the production of natural gas and selling electricity and things of that nature. That's not the case anymore. So we need to start thinking about changing the ways that we approach things. So at the trade show that I mentioned earlier, I had a really fascinating discussion with a software developer. And he talked to me about something called agile development. And so this is a methodology in software development. So software and technology is something that advances very quickly. So rather than setting a target very far in the future of, okay, this is the product that we want to create in 5 or 10 years from now. So we're going to put all of our resources towards going towards that target all at once in one foul swoop. What they do in software development is they set a target, but then they take a step towards that target. They stop and they reassess. Because inevitably in technology, what happens? That target isn't there anymore. Something that you could have never imagined before may have happened in a very short period of time, and now that target is over here. So you reassess, you invest a little bit more money, and you take a step towards that next target. So this is what agile development is. So this is a new way of city building. Rather than investing a whole bunch all at once, you take these small transformative projects with small leaps. So you do this through a city by making low-risk investments. So what we can do is identify a minimum viable project, get it up and running, see what happens, and then refine our approach. And we have to have this approach understanding that it's not going to be perfect. So we're going to make mistakes, just like a software developer will come out with a 1.0 version of software or a beta version of software. We're releasing this right away to the public. And it's done very intentionally so we can bring to surface some of these problems so we can address them and deal with them. And so unlike these large projects, there's also no final design. It's always constantly evolving. There'll be a 1.2, a 1.3, a 1.5, always evolving through these little steps. So next, a strong town's approach emphasizes resiliency of result over efficiency of execution. So this can seem very counterintuitive because we're often obsessed with efficiency. And so this is quite simply a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution. We like things to be orderly and efficient. Governments operate a lot in this way. We operate in silos and hierarchies of efficiency. Businesses, private businesses, often have a much more flatter operating structure. And that allows them to be a lot more innovative than these traditional hierarchies and silos. So they're able to adapt much more quickly. They're able to evolve over time. Efficient systems resist change. While if you don't innovate in business, you will inevitably fail. So this is kind of like the reason why I've chosen this image here is it's kind of like Darwin's theories on evolution. But success isn't actually about survival of the fittest, but rather survival of the most adaptable. And so this is what is meant by being anti-fragile, if anyone is familiar with that. These are complex systems that are able to adapt over time versus a complicated system when it's introduced to stresses will just break. So for example, an engine is a very complicated piece of machinery. It's very complicated. If there's something that breaks in there, the whole thing falls apart and that motor won't turn over. But our cities traditionally have been more complex, more of something that has grown over time and evolves over time and changes over time. So this is what this resiliency is meant by resiliency and being anti-fragile. So next, a strong town's approach is designed to adapt to feedback. So for most of our human history, up until about the post-war era, our habitats were designed to respond to feedback. So cities emerged from a series of interactions, each experiencing feedback, and they were able to adapt based on this feedback and influence from the environment. Once we became affluent, we never developed our environments in this way. We built these types of suburban subdivisions to a complete state that are unable to adapt to changes over time. So this is what Strong Towns calls the suburban experiment. A lot of us know only this, but this wasn't always the case. This isn't how our habitats were created traditionally. They grew much more organically. These kinds of systems here keep us blind to feedback, or keep us, blind to feedbacks, but not free to problems. So they can suffer difficulties in these areas, but there's just no way of addressing them because a city constructed in this way can't evolve to anything else. So a neighborhood like this, a single family home can only become a single family home in the future. Unlike if you look at a mixed use area, like our downtown, for example, it's constantly changing. You know, a business may move into a larger location and someone else moves in. You know, it starts as a barber shop, then it's a bicycle store, then it's a coffee shop. You can't do these things in somewhere where only a single use is allowed. Next, a strong towns approach is inspired by bottom-up action and not top-down systems. So this is the idea that innovation that happens from the bottom up tends to be chaotic but smart, and innovation, in quotation marks, that happens from the top down tends to be orderly but dumb. So instead of creating these grand top-down visions to try and reshape our environment completely in the way that we, the experts, may think is best, we simply observe and try to learn from those around us on how we can make these low-risk, high-return investments. So to do that, we need to do two things. We have to observe how people are struggling in our environment, the way it's been built, and respond quickly with a minimum viable project that will immediately address that struggle. So don't form a committee, don't make a grand plan, don't invest in these massive capital-intensive projects. Just pick something small that you can do and implement it right away, and then reassess. And this is something that's quite difficult for someone like myself to accept because I'm a city planner. I'm a planner of policy. My job is to create these long-range plans for the city. So I helped with my colleagues draft a document that's called the Municipal Development Plan, or the MDP. This is a 30-year plan for the city. So this is my job. This is a huge shift for me to think that might not be the best way of doing things. Maybe there's another way that I should be fulfilling my role in taking on some of these smaller projects that we could implement right away. A strong towns approach seeks to conduct as much of life as possible at a personal scale. So people are the way we measure the success of an area. And a productive place is one that creates enough excess wealth to make sustaining its basic infrastructure in that area financially feasible. And the evidence is abundantly clear that places that attract more people outside of their vehicles are places that are much more financially productive. So we have to ask ourselves the question, how can we have our environment evolve into one that is much more welcoming at a human scale to try and attract more people outside of their vehicles? And this was a great example at the Together Again festival that took place downtown. And finally, a strong towns approach is obsessive about accounting for its revenues, expenses, assets, and long-term liabilities. I think there's a lot of good things that will come out of this participating in this community action lab with Strong Towns. This is going to be one of the biggest ones. So this is the main reason why the City of Medicine Hat is participating in this. It's for the reason I mentioned at the beginning. We're just simply not as wealthy as we used to be. So we need to try and change the way that we're developing our city and look at things through more of a financial lens. So although every city has annual municipal budgets, we often tend to be quite casual about debt, especially debt for some of our long-term liabilities. So when I'm talking about liabilities, I'm talking about anything that is under our responsibility to operate and maintain. So anything like a road, a pipe, a sidewalk, a park, recreational facility like this, we have to be very obsessive with our math to make sure that we can end up with a balanced budget. Because if we don't do that math, we do a large disservice not only to ourselves, but to those people who will inherit the choices, the choices that we've made today. And worse than that, if we don't do the math, we tend to favor our urges over things that are in our best interest. So that's actually something that comes from our City Council strategic plan, where they said it's crucial that we begin to prioritize our needs over our wants. So in short, we have to obsessively keep score to ensure that our decisions are actually being made in our best interest. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions on anything, on the Community Action Lab or Strong Towns or... Yes.
Is there an example you could provide that would describe the example you gave of a quick solution or a quick plan to address a need or an issue? Is there, and I guess to help me see it in something tangible? Is that what you...
Absolutely, yeah. So in one of our lessons, so through this Community Action Lab, we've formed an action team, which includes 16 City of Medicine Hat employees. I'm one of those employees, and we have other employees from other city departments, including our Municipal Works Department, which is our roads department. And in one of our lessons, we had to learn about how can you address a struggle in 24 hours? And one of them were a few dangerous cross sections in our city, or intersections, like a crosswalk, a dangerous crosswalk. So as an urban planner, one of the solutions I had, there's something in urban planning or in street design called a bulb out. And what that is at the intersection, rather than the curb just being a 90-degree angle, it comes out and creates a pinch point in the road. And so it's essentially you build out the curb so that a car approaching an intersection feels the need to slow down because it tightens up, and then also someone crossing the street is on the street for not quite as long. So my great plan was, well, we need to build more of these bulb outs all over the city, because then we can build them out, we can create this, but to do that, you need a lot of money, you need to tear up a lot of roads, you need to invest a lot of time and energy. And then we came up with the idea, well, why don't we try and do something in the interim? How is a small step that we can take towards that? And it could be something as simple as pylons. And so the solution we've come up with is bollards, screw-down bollards that go screw down into the ground. They come up like this, and there are these bollards that you can move around. You know, if someone hits them or something, they just kind of move like that. And what's great with that is we can install them right away. They're not permanent. And we can observe how they actually function in real time, and then adjust it and realize, oh, it's not quite narrow enough, let's make it a little bit more narrow, or it's way too narrow, let's widen it. So that could be step one. Then step two could be, okay, let's replace those now that we've got kind of the design where we want them. Let's have some raised planters there that kind of have the same shape, so it's a little bit larger, a little bit more money, maybe a little bit nicer, until we get to the final design, which will be the sidewalk built out with concrete and things like that. So well, that's a good example of breaking down something that would normally be a huge project and something that we could implement much more quickly. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah?
It seems like a dumb question. Why would the bollards, if they serve the purpose, not become a permanent solution?
Just because there may be other considerations like snow clearing, for example, or tax standards. So tax standards are the ways that we can design our streets, what we're allowed to do or not allowed to do long term. I mean, I'm not an engineer. This is just an idea of a step in between, but absolutely, there's no reason why something like that, it may be proven that that's perfectly adequate, but maybe in certain municipalities, they've found that when they formalize it a little bit more, they can actually install like planters, for example, or other things like that. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that actually my neighborhood association in Halifax, this was an issue. And actually the neighborhood came together to try and decide what to do actually. And everybody in the community came together to paint and ended up painting some beautiful designs in certain crosswalks.
Yeah.
And what it was is it just became noticeable that people slowed down in certain intersections, but it actually it was a community project.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
It came from the neighborhood association.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But that's an excellent point, because that could very well be the case. And if that's the case, that we see, hey, this design works perfectly, we don't need to invest a whole bunch more money in this. But had we not taken that first step, we never would have gotten there. We would have thought right away, okay, let's get the engineers involved, and let's get some consultants, and let's pour some concrete, let's dig up the road, and we never would have taken that small step. So that's an excellent point. Thank you.